In the shop with Brooks Pendergast. Brooks, tell me a little about a little about your background, how you got into model making, and that sort of information.
I spent 4 years of high school in industrial arts. Always worked with my dad. Anything that he had to do, he didn't go to a professional. He had drag lines and bulldozers, and if they broke, he repaired them. And I ended up doing a lot of helping on those repairs. Learned to weld at a young age. From there, I raced go-karts in the 70s and the 80s, and I decided that I wanted to build my own engines, do my own machining, so I bought a bench top mill and a 9-inch South bend lathe and set into making my own parts, welding up my cams, grinding them down, making all the different parts and this, that, and another for not only the engines, but as far as the go-karts themselves, as far as motor mounts and different things, as far as the chain drives and the sprockets and the mounts for all of that sort of thing. And I've been to Henry Ford Museum in my younger years, and ended up realizing that there was a lot of, I guess what you call salesman samples sitting around. If there was a locomotive there, the locomotive had a little miniature sitting beside it in a glass cage, and that kind of intrigued me. And somehow or another, I just got it. I was working at ITT Aerospace in the early 90s, and another fellow there that was working with me. The two of us decided to build a model that Philip Ducos had produced called a Oddball 6-cycle. And between his shop and my shop, we built 12 of those, and that basically got started in building the models.
Wonderful. And you've got quite the collection. This is not just the only one you've ever built, not the only model, and not the only style of this. Is that correct?
Correct.
This is an Atkinson differential engine. There's not a lot of information on the web about these. I'll try and find a little and put it in the description. This Atkinson was out of Nottingham, England. I believe he designed these around 1885 or 1888. We don't think they were ever commercially produced. There is one in a museum in England someplace. It's a very unique engine, as it makes all 4 strokes: intake, compression, ignition, exhaust, in one revolution of the crankshaft. There's no cams, no gears. I'm going to have Brooks tell you a little more about how he came up with the design and what all these moving parts are doing.
Well, the engine intrigued me to the fact that I wasn't big on cutting gears, and the fact that this engine required no gears and no cams. Therefore, it made it seem simple to me to be an engine that I wanted to build. And I purchased a magazine called Internal Fire by Lyle Cummings. And in that particular book, there was an Atkinson differential in there. And from that point, it intrigued me to the point that I wanted to build one of these. And I found 2 other books. One was Gas, Oil, and Hot Air by Duncan, and the other one of a similar type, that the late 1800s. And they had some drawings and more descriptions of it than what Cummings had. But from there was no plans. There was only some pictures and a couple sketches of the different strokes. That all I had to build the engine from. I manufactured a little wood piece that I was able to switched the pivot points around so that the pistons were moving at different ratios, and finally came up with what I felt would work as a running engine. And lo and behold, in 1992, I showed up at the Portland Tri-State engine show with one of them running, and that was a very exciting time for 5 days there.
So this engine is your second one, or your?
It's the second size of the Atkinson differential.
How many of the bigger size? Which I'll show you the bigger one in a minute. How many of the bigger size have you built?
42.
You have built 42.
I built a group of 20, and my prototype, and another group of 20, and then I built one kind of this size way back when, which ended up somebody else owns it.
I had no idea. I thought that these two that we have in the shop were the only two you'd ever produced.
No.
Wow. So walk us through this as you roll through the flywheel, and as you look on here, the only thing cast is the flywheel. Brooks bought that or picked it up at a swap meet, something. Everything else on here, with the exception of the hardware, Brooks is all built in his shop.
The cylinder has 2 pistons in it, and there's no head. Both pistons form. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over right now. The cycle starts with both pistons to this end. The piston on the right moves away for the intake stroke. This piston chases and catches up to the other end for compression. Now the piston on the other side stays still, and this one runs away for a power stroke, and then the other one chases and catches up for exhaust. The intake is sucked open, the exhaust is blown open. So when the intake is being sucked open, the exhaust is being sucked hard against its seat. When the exhaust valve is being blown open, the intake is being blown hard against its seat. So one works under vacuum and the other one under negative pressure and one under positive pressure.
Are those check valves that you're using for that application?
In the larger engine, they were regular 45-degree poppet valves.
Okay.
This engine is going to be, the intake is a check valve that I purchased from McMaster Car, and it's sucked open, and the exhaust valve is a check valve as well, and it's being blown open.
Is that pretty true to the original design?
No, the original design was poppet valves.
Was poppet, by a poppet, is that an atmospheric valve, or what is a poppet valve? Give me
I mean,
a brief
it's a 45-degree regular valve,
okay.
like in cars or whatever.
Like in a standard internal combustion engine.
Yes, and they just sucked open and they were blown open.
They have a little spring around them, and
Yeah.
they're just caged up, and
Yes.
okay. So this is our fuel tank,
Yes.
our carburetor. There's only one spark plug right here that I see.
Yes.
Both pistons come together to create the combustion chamber, similar to like what you would see in a Morse Fairbanks diesel.
Yes.
Now, did Morse get that from Atkinson, or did Atkinson get that from Morse, or is that just an idea that independently grew from each group?
Morris may have got it from Atkinson, but Atkinson was considerably earlier time.
Okay. So you can see just how smooth this little engine runs, and unfortunately it's not going to run today. The ignition system died earlier today. I will get video of both of them running here in the near future. You can see that there are several holes in the crank disc up here, trying to figure out as Brooks tried to figure out his stroke lengths. You may not catch it, but you can just hear it. You can just hear the vacuum on it, just trying to suck those together. Aluminum pistons, aluminum connecting rods, brass body with a steel sleeve in it, Brooks.
Well, the sleeve, the intake and the exhaust and the spark plug go up to that sleeve, and there's a Viton O-ring sealing each one of those to the sleeve.
We can advance or retard the timing from this little lever. It looks like it's timed off of is that a proc switch, or is that a?
That's the magnet, the Hall effect.
It's a Hall effect switch. Little magnet Hall effect switch, proc switch. There's a magnet on the disc and a little pickup under here. Just purchased probably a 5 or 6 inch flywheel. Just the fit and the finish on this in person is absolutely wonderful. This is now. Were there any dimensions to a full-size engine?
Just the footprint that it had and how much it weighed.
How just an idea, how big would a full-size one of these have been? Twice this size, 10 times this size?
The full-size one would have had about a 5-foot flywheel.
5 foot across the flywheel, not 5 inches.
And probably stood 4 or 5 feet tall.
So, with that, why don't I set this one aside and get the bigger one and set it down here, and we can talk about some of the differences. Oh. There we go. So this is the one you made a run of 42 of these, is that correct?
This was number 1.
And
This was my prototype.
And this is the prototype. Now, there's a couple of things different. Is this just a...
That's a governor that I originally had built into it, but dropped the idea of the governor.
Okay. I'll turn this around. There's a governor, but that apparently has been disabled.
Yes.
Then this is for your ignition system. That activates your points or activates the electronic ignition.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that activates a set of Chrysler points.
Set of Chrysler points.
And there's a Model T buzz coil in the bottom for ignition.
And then it's got a little muffler, a little carburetor. So it just now that's just okay. I thought I didn't see the tie rod on the other one, but it is there, and you can see that this just rolls over real nice. There we go. I've seen these run. This thing is very smooth running. It has a lot of power to it. You can grab the flywheel with your hand, and you're not going to stomp it.
Well, you're going to play havoc stopping it.
What does this engine run on, Brooks? Is this gasoline? Is this white gas?
I run it on my weed eater gas. It's meant to run on just regular gasoline, but I run the 50 to 1 ratio that I run in my weed eater. It lubricates it a little bit.
Yep.
There's no sense in destroying the engine by trying to run it with just gasoline and forget about oiling it sometime and then mess it up.
Now, you've got a CNC mill in the shop, a vertical machining center that you produce some of these pieces and parts on.
Yes.
Very little manual work when you make these.
Right.
Is somebody considering building a one-off? Can this is something they could do manually, or is this something that honestly they probably ought to do a 3D CAD CAM model of and cut it with a computer machine?
After I had sold the ones that I built, I sold plans for this engine for several years, and there's a lot of engines were built by a home shop machinist that did not have CNC.
Now, are you still offering plans for these?
No, I have them. Occasionally somebody will buy a set from me, but that's not it's nothing that I advertise.
If somebody is interested in a set of plans for these, in the description below, I'll put Brooks's email. I will also put the Indiana Engine Show email, and I can always get a hold of Brooks on your behalf if something happens. Are these two engines going to be at the at the engine show in Auburn this fall, Brooks?
Yes, they are.
Will your other engines be there?
There'll be an Atkinson cycle engine there. There'll be a Stickney Junior there. There'll be a Stickney Universal there. There'll be Oddball 6 cycle there. There'll be several Sterling cycle engines there.
And that's just out of your collection.
Yes, several hot air engines there.
I'm going to hope that we could have you come back by the shop as the summer progresses with a different engine and do a little more of this for anybody that's interested.
Sure.
Brooks will be at the Indiana Model Engine Show. He won't be hard to miss. A lot of people are very excited about these. He'll have some plans for these there. He can, if you wish to purchase a set and you can't make it, we can connect you with him to get that purchase taken care of if you're interested. Brooks is just one of the many, many unique vendors and exhibitors we're going to have at the engine show in October in Auburn. We really hope to see you there. Once again, I'm Aaron Kohler.
And I'll be setting up right in front of a 65 AC Cobra.
So our venue this year is the National Auto and Truck Museum in Auburn, Indiana. It's the old assembly building for the Auburn Court-Duesenberg facility. The Auburn Court-Duesenberg Museum's about 100 foot across our parking lot. The venue is full of race cars, vintage cars, historic cars, unique cars, trucks. When you come through the door to see the model engines, you will get to see the entire NATMAS Automotive Museum as well. Brooks will be really close to the AC Cobra. I hope we don't have to chase the Cobra down after the show. I think Brooks would walk off with that if you possibly could.
If I could, yes.
So, once again, I'm Aaron Kohler, and this has been In the Shop. Thank you, Brooks, for coming by. Very much appreciate it. I hope to see you all in October.